You wake up in a servant's quarters somewhere in a Renaissance palace, and someone is already knocking. Not gently, not politely, just knocking like your existence has been scheduled, and the schedule does not care if you slept. You stand up, splash water on your face, and walk toward the kitchens knowing that today, like every day, you will eat before the king eats. Not because you are special, because you might die first. This is your job. You are a food taster. And the title sounds almost elegant until you remember what tasting actually means. It means sitting in front of a plate that was prepared by people you barely know, seasoned with ingredients you cannot verify, and putting it in your mouth while a room full of nobles watches your face for signs of death. You do not get to refuse, you do not get to call in sick. Because if you are not there, someone starts wondering why. And when powerful people start wondering, servants start disappearing. So you show up, you sit down, you taste. At first it feels almost normal. The food is good, sometimes better than anything you have ever eaten in your life. Roasted meats, spiced wine, sugared fruits, cream, butter, bread so soft it barely fights back. You're eating like royalty because you are eating royalty's food. Just 30 seconds earlier. The first bite goes down easy. Maybe it is fine. Maybe today is not the day. Then you take a second bite, and your brain starts doing the math. Arsenic takes 15 minutes. Hemlock starts slower. Some poisons bloom fast and loud, others creep. You do not know which one you are testing for, and nobody tells you because the whole point is that you find out first. So now you are chewing very carefully, not because the food is tough, because your body has turned into a diagnostic tool and you are waiting for symptoms you cannot name. Your hands start sweating, not from poison, from fear. But how do you tell the difference? You swallow, and immediately your throat feels tight. Is that real? Or is that just panic? You take a sip of wine to wash it down, and now you are wondering if the wine was the trap all along. Everyone is watching. The king has not touched his plate. The guards stand close. The servants freeze mid-step. And you, the taster, are the only person in the room actively dying or pretending not to. If you show weakness, you lose the job. If you show nothing and drop dead 10 minutes later, you also lose the job. The trick is to stay calm, stay alive, and make poisoning look like bad digestion. You finish the portion, you wait. The room waits. Time moves like a suspicious uncle who knows you are lying but cannot prove it yet. Then, after what feels like 300 years, someone nods. The king eats. You are dismissed. You walk out of that room on legs that feel like wet rope. You do not vomit. You do not collapse. You just leave. And the second you are alone, you check yourself like a mechanic inspecting a broken cart. Pulse, still there. Vision? Blurry, but maybe you are just tired. Stomach, uncertain. Always uncertain. This is your life now. Every meal is a test. Every bite is a gamble. And the worst part is that you're not even the main character. You are the preview. You are the canary in the very fancy coal mine. Poison is older than kingdoms. Humans figured out how to kill with plants and powder long before they figured out plumbing. And once people realized you could murder someone without a sword, without noise, without a witness, poison became the weapon of choice for anyone smart, patient, and sufficiently angry. In ancient Rome, emperors dropped like flies. Claudius, probably poisoned. Britannicus, definitely poisoned. Whole dynasties got erased one mushroom dish at a time. By the Middle Ages, poison was so common that nobles started hiring tasters just to survive dinner. And you, the taster, are the human shield between the kitchen and the throne. Some tasters got lucky. They served boring kings who had boring enemies and ate boring food that nobody bothered lacing with death. They tasted soup, survived, retired, and died of old age like absolute legends. But most tasters were not that lucky. Most tasters worked for rulers with serious enemies, political rivals, jealous siblings, angry spouses, rival kingdoms. The Pope, that one cardinal who smiled too much. In a world where succession meant murder and murder meant powder, your job was to absorb the plot before it reached the crown. So you tasted everything. The bread, the butter, the meat, the sauce, the wine, the water, Even the fruit, because someone once killed a duke with a poisoned pear, and now pears are suspicious forever. You taste it in the kitchen. You taste it at the table. Sometimes you taste it in front of guests just to prove the king was cautious, which meant your possible death was now part of the entertainment. People acted like you were paranoid, like the fear was excessive. But history proved you right over and over. In 1538, the Duke of Urbino's taster died after sampling a meal. The Duke survived. In France, food tasters worked in shifts because one dead taster was a warning and two was a pattern. Some kings used multiple tasters per dish, just in case one taster had built up immunity or was secretly in on the plot. You were disposable. You were replaceable. You were the cheapest, slowest, least reliable poison detector ever invented. But you were also all they had. Because in a world before chemistry, before labs, before tests that could detect a single grain of arsenic, the only way to know if food was safe was to eat it and wait. So you ate. And you waited. The fear never left. Even on quiet days, even when the food tasted fine, you still spent the next hour wondering if this was the time. You memorized symptoms: sweating, trembling, vomiting, convulsions, numbness, burning throat, blurred vision, paralysis. You knew them all because knowing meant you might recognize death early enough to say something useful before you stopped talking forever. Some poisons were obvious. Hemlock made you seize. Arsenic made you vomit until there was nothing left. Belladonna made your pupils huge and your heart wild. But other poisons were subtle, slow, a little bit every day until your organs just gave up. And if someone wanted you dead specifically, they could dose the food just enough to kill the taster, but not the king. You were the test strip. If you survived, great. If you died, even better. Either way, the plan moved forward. You did not talk about this with other servants. You did not complain. Because complaining implied you thought you deserved better, and people who thought they deserved better did not last long in palaces. So you stayed quiet. You tasted. You swallowed. You waited. Some tasters tried to protect themselves. They ate bland food on their own time, hoping it would settle their stomach. They prayed. They carried charms. They developed superstitions about which dishes were safest. They avoided mushrooms, shellfish, anything that looked too rich or too rare. But none of that actually mattered, because if someone wanted the king dead badly enough, your caution was just an inconvenience. The truth was simple. You were not hired because you were special. You were hired because you were expendable. Your life was worth less than the king's comfort, and your death was worth less than certainty. So when the poison finally came, when someone finally laced the wine or dusted the meat or soaked the bread, you were the one who found out first. Not because you were brave, because you were there. You took a bite. The room went quiet. Then your stomach twisted. Your mouth went dry. Your vision started folding in on itself like bad parchment. You tried to stand, but your legs were gone. You tried to speak, but your throat was closing. Someone shouted. Someone grabbed you. The king pushed his plate away and you hit the floor still chewing. They carried you out. Not gently, not like you mattered. Just quickly, because a dying servant was bad for the mood. You did not die a hero. You died doing your job. And your job was to be wrong about safety just once. The king survived. The kitchen was purged. Another taster was hired by morning. Your name was not recorded. Your sacrifice was not honored. You were simply replaced. And that is the punchline. For centuries, this was normal. Tasters died so kings could eat. They tested, they suffered, they collapsed, and the world kept turning. Some survived. Most did not. All of them lived in fear. Your final reward was not glory. It was the bitter knowledge that your entire existence was a buffer between power and poison. You were not a guardian. You were a warning system made of flesh. And maybe, just maybe, the real poison was never in the food. It was in the job itself.